Alright, welcome back to Embervale, everybody. I am sitting on my throne on Twice Peak, which is on the Pillars of Creation, in case you haven't seen any of my videos so far. So I've got a little bit of a list together of things that I'd love to see in Enshrouded in the future. Things that I think would improve the gameplay and I guess just give you more playtime within the game world as well. So this isn't going to be any sort of fancy edit. It's just going to be me running around. I'm going to do a couple of quests and talk about a couple of the things that I think that Enshrouded could definitely use. So I've got around 240 hours in the game so far, and I just think these things would help add to that and I guess just make the gameplay experience a little bit better as well. So the first thing I want to discuss, one thing I'll mention too, is throughout my series, all of my Enshrouded videos, I've probably mentioned most of these things before. There'll probably a couple of new things as well that people that have seen my content haven't heard yet. And this is a very recent one, but it is definitely something that I would love to see. So I've just gone into the first person in my base, and this is something that I'd love to see in general in the gameplay, so a first person perspective gameplay. Now, one of the things I will mention about this is not everyone's going to appreciate it. Not everyone likes first person, right? And I can understand that, but I think a toggleable, is that a word? The ability to toggle between first and third person for people. I really enjoy my first person games. I think they really immerse you in the game world a lot more. So I'm just having a bit of a look around, see if I can find... I've got crap all over the place here. Yeah, I've got no idea. All right, so I was just going to find something. So basically that little circle didn't pop up all the time. But yeah, a first person, I think it'd really just add to the immersion of the game. You can get up nice and close to everything. Like obviously in building mode, it is a really big deal. And it makes it much easier to build, but it just gives you a massively different perspective and I think would change the game world entirely. It'd just give the game an entirely different feel and obviously add to the immersion levels, as I've said before. So just looking around, it's a completely different vibe. Like if I go back out to that, one thing I'll mention also, let me know your opinions in the comments on any of my ideas and anything, any sort of, I guess, downfalls you can see that might come with any of these additions to the game. So yeah, basically first person is the first thing I wanted to mention. And I'm going to go for a little bit of a flyover to, I'm going to do a quest. Something I've been meaning to do for quite some time now, which is this one. Go and get the maid outfit, because why not? I'll move on to number 2, which I've got a list written down here. So yeah, more variety in the weapon styles. So someone mentioned in a video that they'd love to see chakrams, I don't know how to pronounce it, but basically just more variety in the weapon types. I'm sure most people will agree with most of this list because I don't really see any bad sides to any of the additions. Definitely more types of thrown weapons, potentially like thrown daggers or something. You could have a sort of low power, fast firing sort of dagger system. So maybe a dual wield. So you got multiple daggers, one in each hand, and you just like sort of, maybe they're magic or something. I don't know. You're just throwing them off. So sort of fast firing and low damage. It would sort of, I think, just give the game a bit of a feel of a little bit of a faster paced combat style. Potentially like a basic version of firearms also. Am I going up the top or down the bottom? Looks like the bottom. I don't know if a musket style or perhaps a repeater style rifle or something like that. Maybe a basic revolver. And I'm not sure how it really fits into the game mode, to be perfectly honest. I don't see, because it's all sort of basic and, you know, you're not going to get bloody Uzis or machine guns or anything like that, I can't imagine, but just something to do with firearms would probably be a reasonable addition to the game. We've got some bad guys here. Mayfair lot. So we'll go and find the cosmetic maid outfit. And I think that's probably all I wanted to touch on with weapons. Basically just a little bit more variety and a few more types. It'd definitely add to like the looting and stuff as well, because you're obviously going out to find more stuff. And I'll just kill these guys eventually. They're all pretty weak, so I don't really have to worry about giving them a little stab in the guts. I'll move on to number 3, which is stat variation in weapons and armor. Now, I've definitely mentioned this in another video, and it was a concept that came to me from a different game that I play, which is Surrounded. I've recently done a review on that video, on that game, so if you want to see what that's like, feel free to check out the vid. Developer mentioned adding stat variation to weapons and armor. So I had a little bit of a think about it, and I thought that is actually a very good thing for, I guess, replayability of existing areas. So you've already gone around and discovered and found, you know, a certain armor or a certain weapon type or something like that, weapon that you appreciate. I won't worry about reading that. It's probably got some form. I buried it under rubble and ash. Okay, so there's a little bit of a hint of something there. Yeah, so the stat variation, I believe it will add replayability to like sort of rediscovering areas. So you'd go around and say, we'll have a look at what I've got in my inventory at the moment for an example. So something like this, the Major Arcana, so that's upgraded at the moment with 112 defense. It's got 0.6 attack speed, and then some variation within, oh, sorry, not variation, but some extra stats on top of that. So the same style of weapon, exactly the same, the Major Arcana. If I go and find this weapon again at the same level, at level 35, it's going to have the exact same stats, stat for stat. So I'd love to potentially see, so you might get something that's, say its base damage is 70, so it might be a 60 base damage but with a 1 attack speed, and then different variations on these extra abilities on top of it as well. So it'd basically just get you out searching more often for the same weapon type. And I don't know if people, like, a lot of people might not like that, to be perfectly honest, I guess, but it seems to me like something that would definitely add to the replayability of certain areas. I should probably have a little bit of a look for what I'm actually out here for at the moment. Pile of rubble and ash. I don't want to say it, but there's rubble and ash bloody everywhere. Yeah, and then I guess with armor also, stat variation. Perhaps you have a crafting skill, and as you level up your crafting skill, so I would go back into my inventory or go to character. So something like that, it's got 150 physical resistance, and it's got the 30 stam and 300 health and stuff like that. Maybe you have a crafting skill, and as you level that up, it crafts a higher tier. So every now and again, you might have to craft newer stuff. So it would give you higher stats potentially, or stat variations, and potentially the stuff that you just find in the world as well would have slight stat variations. So you're constantly out searching for sort of better gear, and I don't know, I think that variation would definitely add to the sort of replayability, as I've said probably 10 times now. I'm having a little bit of a bad time trying to find my maid's outfit. Pile of rubble and ash. I mean, ash is going to come from a building, right? I'll have a little bit of a dig down in here. Looks like there's a bit of a staircase here. And I'll probably leave it there for the stat variation, so you get a little bit of an idea of what I'm thinking about. Looks like we've found a bit of an area down here. And I'll move on to the next on the list. It looks like we've got a bit of a crate there. Variety in combat animations. Now, you've 100% heard about this. Oh, is that it? I just get 2 pieces. Alright. Thought that was going to be like a sort of full outfit, and I don't know if it's going to go extremely well on my character. But I'll make my way out of the shroud and check it out. Yeah, so variety in combat animations. I'll just quickly go through what I've got on me at the moment. Basically, I'm just repeating the same process, and if I hold down the button at some stage, There we go. We get a little power attack spin at the end there. So that's about the variation on that. That's the next sword. 100% the same. Then what have I got here? It's a one-handed axe. It's doing the exact same thing. And the daggers. Anyone who's watched my videos knows I'm not impressed with the daggers. They just repeat the same motion over and over again. You're basically just like stabbing in front of you forever. I think there's definitely room for improvement with the weapon animations. I don't think it's a lot for them to add extra variation to the weapon attacks as well. Obviously, they've got another update coming in the future, or potentially a couple of major updates with new biomes and things like that, and they can always add it in with that. It just gets a little bit dull, and I think that's probably one of the largest criticisms of Enshrouded is the fact that, you know, the combat feels a little bit repetitive eventually. 100% would love to see basically just some more attacks, variations. Maybe you have to press an extra button and does something special. I don't know. Maybe there's a light attack and a heavy attack variation that once you mix them together, it creates different varieties. And yeah, I really think that would sort of make the game a little bit more intriguing when it comes to the combat. I think shield bashing as well. So you've obviously got like the parry. Let's go and parry something quickly. This dirty dog over here. Dirty dog, filthy cat. Can we... Well, okay, that was a really good parry. What's going... It's like my button's broken. Yeah, so shield bashing, so I could literally just like... Actually like sort of bash them off with my shield. Sort of a repetitive motion, something pretty basic, but it'd be something that I think would be a great addition. And we just did a finisher attack, so there's more variety in those finishing attacks. Basically, just more variety across the board, basically. It would be a pretty good addition. Let's just go into customize our appearance, and we'll go to that. Put our maid's outfit on, because I guess we're a maid now. The dreads coming out the back. Not entirely fitting for a male character, but for some reason I had this like idea that it was going to be a very like sort of raunchy maid's outfit. Shows where my mind goes, I guess. Yeah, more variety in combat animations and shield bashing mechanic and some extra finishing attacks I think would be great. So I might just trade that out for now. I guess we better put something on. He's about to attack me, so we'll go over here quickly. And I'm just going to find another quest. I'm pretty sure I had something I wanted to do. The VUCA rituals. So I'll make my way back to base because that'll be easier. Let me just set a waypoint. More enemy types. I had a little bit of a thought about this, and obviously in the future with the new major updates there's potential for new enemy types. Now I would assume they would have new enemy types. They added a couple of different varieties with the, I can't even remember what they called it, but basically the snow biome update, they added a couple of new enemy types, but they also rehashed a lot of enemy types. Where am I going over here? So yeah, they rehashed a lot of enemy types as well and basically just gave them new skins. And I think made it like a flame attack instead of some other form of attack. I can't quite remember. I played a lot of Left 4 Dead. Like I've probably got maybe 2,000 hours between Left 4 Dead 1 and 2. There's an enemy called a smoker, and they're obviously ex-smokers that have turned into zombies. And they grab you with their tongue and drag you in. And basically you get stuck in that game. I can't really... I don't think you'd want that in this, because unless you're playing multiplayer, you'd obviously be trapped until you died. So it's not something that's going to really work out in a combat scenario. But even if they just dragged you into a bunch of enemies, so they were mixed in with a group of enemies and, you know, the smoker or something similar grabs you, drags you in, and then you're sort of stuck in the midst of a bunch of zombies. I think especially with like the shroud enemies, when you get into those massive groups, it'd be something, you know, you've got like 30 of those bastards chasing you or something like that, and they move really slow. Like they're not hard to outmaneuver. If you had the smoker type sort of dragging you in, then, you know, eventually it releases you, but you're stuck in the middle of like 30 zombies or 30 shroud enemies. I think that'd be a pretty good addition. They also have something called a hunter, where it sort of pounces on you and pins you to the ground. Once again, it's sort of a pinning thing. I don't think you'd really want pinning in this unless you were playing in multiplayer. It really wouldn't be sort of feasible in any form of battle. I'll just kill these VUCA bastards quickly. There's a whole bunch of them here. They're all weak. I wonder what's in that chest. I guess it's a weapon. It's not going to be the most amazing weapon. Oh, mate's stuck. We done? We done? That's all of them? Yeah, so the hunter sort of pins you down. That would give you, say you're sort of running from a group essentially, and they sort of pin you down, and then it gives the group of enemies the chance to sort of catch up to you. So to just add to the difficulty and the variety in the combat. And off the top of my head, I can't really think of any extra variety, but if you can think of other types of enemies that you'd like to see in the game, feel free to chuck them in the comments. I always go through them on my videos and try to get back to everyone as soon as possible. So yeah, I won't leave you hanging. I don't actually know what I'm doing here. Locations below. We're going down here. VUCA ritual. Sacrificial VUCA pit. So you got snow rumor, but fact. Fort Calvin report sounds from inside the mountains. What's that? Sacrificial VUCA dagger. Is that the mission? Apparently so. Not the most elaborate thing I've ever been through. What does that dagger do? I don't know if you can get a gold variety. And that's one thing I'll mention too. Like I've mentioned it before. All your like legendary weapons and stuff, like this greater golden twin flame sword is something that you'll get. But it's stuck, I think it's level 32 when you get it. And I'd love to be able to get that to level 40 because I want to use it. It's a really cool looking sword, but it's not the most effective weapon now because it's level 32 and I'm getting level 35 gear, which is a little bit of a shame. So I might even just do that quickly, which I think I've done it in another video before, but it's my legendary weapon farm. So we're up in the right next to the Balefire Garrison Windward. I've just set up a little base above it, just so I can farm it over and over again. If you reload the game, it will reload all the chests, so you can just go back to main menu, load back in, and farm over and over again. It's a little bit cheesy, and I guess it can take away from the game a little bit, so a lot of people may not want to do it, but it is something that you can do if you want to farm a shitload of good weapons, I guess, reasonably quickly. So I should have one of those. Started using Wisp of Lights. I need to get a bunch more of those though. So, I mean, for the majority of enemies, this sword really isn't that bad, but, you know, you want as much damage as you can get when you're going through the higher level areas because there's some stuff that absolutely smashes you. Take out those couple of bastards quickly. This is something that is upsetting me. Well, not so much upsetting me, but it's not ideal while I'm trying to base build and things like that, is the flame altars. So I would love to see more flame altars. So I want to be able to build more flame altars. Basically you get caught up, so I'm trying to do build videos at the moment, and I'll do them in the main world or I'll do them in a separate world or something like that, but I'm limited because I've got like all my farming bases, like, so if I look around, where am I? Don't have to worry about the spiders too much, they're attacking me. So I've got my little farm base over here, I've got my main base, and then I've got a few altars set up in certain areas for specific things to be able to farm certain areas and whatnot. And with that limit, I'm sort of stuck. I can't build any extra bases in this world. I can't build any little shacks here or there. I can't have spawn points sort of over the base, so it just makes, it's hurting me a bit. Traversal a little bit of a pain in the ass, especially in the end game where you've got to, you know, get halfway over the map and you don't have a spawn point close. And then also building, so I'd like to build like a shack here, or, you know, a certain resource base in a certain area or something like that. With the, what are we at? I think I'm at a 10 limit. So active altars 10. I might be able to get to 11 with the next upgrade if I ever kill that bloody dragon, but maybe one day. So yeah, this is always going to get you level 35 weapons if you're ever looking around and you want to farm these things. I didn't really look on the map too much, did I? So yeah, it's a hidden tomb entry right next to the Windward Balefire garrison. And the build limit size, this isn't such a big deal, I guess. The build limit is relatively large, but if you're getting into larger builds in certain areas, like I've found that I wanted to do a certain build that takes over a certain area, but it's going to take, you know, potentially 3 upgraded altars to actually get the area covered. So I think once you get to a certain level, you're basically stuck. Like you can't, I can't remember what the limit is, like 140 by 140 or 120 by 120. I can't quite remember off the top of my head. But basically it's just a bit of a limiting factor. And if you're doing a lot of builds and stuff like that, like larger build range and more altars is 100% necessary. Because I don't want to be deleting something just to build something new sort of over and over again. And yeah, the spawn points, so being able to traverse the map a little bit quicker. I'm not sure how many you'd add, to be perfectly honest. Even an extra 5 or 10 would be a massive difference. So we just go down here for the next gold chest. Basically I just come in, go straight to the left, keep following left, and pretty much get there pretty easy. Until this last T intersection where you go right. One thing about the weapons too, I did mention in a video, is like an electric, like, so this thing, let's just get rid of these bastards so they're not constantly attacking me. There's so many of them. Yeah, even like these spiders could like shoot a web at you, and I don't know if maybe the larger variety out of the small ones could have like a web attack that slowed you down. Would be a good little extra addition. So there's another level 35 crate, but it's not going to get you, or it's generally not going to get you the highest tier gear. So if we look at the Greater Twin Flame Sword, the majority of its ability is in shock. When I attack things, there's nothing. Like it's just another sword like everything else. So there's no actual effect. I would love to see an actual electric effect around the weapon. So that sword has like a little electric effect going around it, and when you attack things it gives off like a spark or something like that. We go to something else like the Inflamed Sword, obviously it should be fire. Basically that would be emanating fire, so I'm gonna go to that. So it's definitely got like, it's, you know, been heated up in a forge sort of thing. And then we go to that. This has already got, like, this is the electric wand, and it's got that electricity. So that sort of thing on your swords and your axes and things like that, I think would be a great addition. It's the little things in video games that really, like, sort of add up and create that atmosphere and make a fun, playable game. So I think something like that would definitely be another good addition. I'll kill Spidey quickly. Full health is not going to be much of a battle. Kill his little babies. Check out our weapon. So I think this one actually gives you the Ancestral Star over and over again. Like, it's a 100% spawn. So if you're into two-handed weapons and you want the Ancestral Star, I'm not sure if you ever get a gold version of that, to be perfectly honest. Or, what is it? Legendary, I believe they call it? Yeah, Legendary. So I'll move on to the next little thing that I'd love to see in the game. And I guess I'll just find, where's my base? Go back up to here for a sec. And I'm just going to cruise around to a couple of those question mark. I'll go over to this one. Set waypoint. So NPC towns and villages. Now, I know there's some major updates coming, as I said, but I'm not sure if it's been mentioned of any NPC towns or villages. Maybe some form of trade economy. So when you go into these NPC towns and villages, you've actually got some interactivity and things that you can do. I think the game itself, if you're playing in solo, it can definitely feel a little bit lifeless. Like, I think, I don't know, it's like, it's human interaction, right? Like, it's not actual human interaction, but it's in the game, it's going to feel like a human interaction sort of thing. Like, you're not going to feel so alone in the world. And I think that's something that the game 100% needs. I've certainly mentioned it before, like the last bastion of mankind. So the last place that they've held out, and there's actually some people, they could definitely go through to be a little bit of work and add, you know, so we've got a pretty big map here and you've got all your different, so maybe there's just one. So in the Springlands, there's a certain area, it might be just a small, really small village or something like that. And then eventually once you work your way up to say the Nomad Highlands, it's a little bit bigger. There's a bit more of, you know, a bit more of a city or town style as opposed to a village. And also random encounters. So if you've ever played like Red Dead Redemption or anything like that, when you're cruising around and you have those random encounters with NPCs, it actually makes a massive difference to the game, and they're really fun. They're usually really intriguing and it adds to the liveliness. So you might just see someone cruising around in the world like they're not really doing much. They're just making their way from place to place. You know, there doesn't need to be massive interactivity with everything, but I think adding the NPC random encounters would be a pretty big deal. And I'm not sure if I saw mentioned that there's potential for base attacks. That would be one thing. So a lot of your building, I guess you'd add a setting so whether base attacks actually happen or not, because a lot of people might just want more of a creative style, so they build their villages or they build their homes or something like that, and they don't really want it to get attacked. But adding in base defense objects and base attacks, I think could be something that a lot of people would enjoy. It's something that I'd certainly enjoy. I love that sort of town building aspect. I love civ building in video games, so having a base attack mechanic would definitely, you know, it'd force you to build your base in certain materials, in certain ways, and having base defensive items. So it makes, you know, potentially you'd still have to go back and defend your base, but you've got a lot of stuff there that's going to help with the actual defense. And then maybe, you know, with your repair hammer and a couple of resources, you can just go quickly through and repair things. Now, obviously, you go to a lot of effort for your base builds, and the destructibility would make it a pain in the ass to actually rebuild your base over and over again. So maybe certain items can be destroyed within your base as opposed to the entire structures. It would definitely take a little bit of thought to implement into a game like this, because as I said, you do put a lot of effort into your builds, and if it was consistently destroyed, it would be a pain in the ass. So they might have to put in a few countermeasures to make it a little bit more feasible for this sort of game. So apparently I may have to go into the smothering pit, but I will move on to my next point, which is something for me lately that has been a big deal. So there shouldn't be anything in here too dangerous that's going to kill me. I don't think this is the highest level area. This one is, oh, a little bit of damage. Big fella's caught up to me. Can I get out of here? I'm just trapped. Can you guys piss off for a second? Yeah, so a creative mode. So I want to do a lot of base building and builds and things like that. And the biggest upset for me at the moment is going around and farming. So I've thought of a couple of ways that they could sort of implement this, things that could help, which obviously is a creative mode. So something like, Minecraft is probably a good example, where you can basically just go into your inventory and get infinite blocks and bits and pieces. You can either get your basic resources, or you can get the prefab objects, so all your different types of building blocks and, you know, smithies and all that sort, you know, everything, all your different furniture types, and basically anything that's available in the game as a resource or a prefab, you can just go in and get. So that would make building so much easier, like ridiculously easy. The farming in this can get absolutely insane for larger builds, and I'm not the biggest on farming over and over again. Wow, there's so much shit coming. But one thing I also thought could alleviate it is just a boosted farming rate as well. So you've got a maximum at the moment of 2 times farming rate. And I think basically increasing the slider to get you to like a 10x farming rate or something like that, or I don't know. I guess the more ridiculous you make it, or you know, if you made it like 100x, you may as well just add a crafting mode or a creative mode where you can just add everything that you want into your inventory and get your builds done. I think a lot of players would appreciate this. I see a lot of build videos and I don't imagine that the people building these things appreciate the farming side of it so much. There's only so much time you can spend farming before it becomes a repetitive pain in the ass, so yeah, definitely a creative mode, or at least extremely boosted farming rates. 2x is not enough, basically, for when you're doing excessively large builds. Get rid of this so I can actually see what's going on in this bloody area. Did I get rid of the big guy? I must have killed him already. I've really been paying no attention. And once I get to this like strength level, I really don't have to pay too much attention to anything. Are you gonna break anytime soon? There we go. Okay. So that's about that. I've actually got to go through... Turns out there's a lot of shroud routes I haven't gotten. Wait, what just happened? Where did that hole in the ground come from? I'm so confused. Get rid of these bastards quickly. Has everyone had enough? Okay, so I'll go on to the next thing, which is water. Like, flowing water, lakes and streams and rivers and all sorts of water-related items, I guess. I'm pretty sure the entire community wants this, and from what I've seen, it's potentially been mentioned for a future update. Obviously, implementing water in a game like this is going to be a reasonable task. So from what I saw is the potential for a water biome or something related to like a water biome. I don't think that's necessarily ideal. Now, the game's obviously amazing and everything like that, and the world's mapped out and it's really well detailed and all the rest of it, but even going back through your earlier game levels or earlier game areas like the Springlands and Revelwood and things like that, I think potentially turning some of the lava streams into water streams or something like that, so it's not entirely like the biggest upset for the developers to actually add it in, where they'd have to go in and recreate areas and rebuild certain things and add in streams and things like that. I think it's definitely a thing they would need to do, where you would go through and add extra streams. So instead of just having a new water biome, having like rehash the older areas with extra, like, you know, with creeks and streams and lakes, and I guess you could add like a raft in, why not? Add in a little extra raft or sailboat or something. I don't know, maybe you could just have oars, maybe you could use magic to power it. Go crazy, you're the devs, not me. But yeah, so waterfalls and things like that, and then being able to implement it in builds. So going back to Minecraft, which this is obviously a voxel world as well, being able to, you know, in Minecraft you get the bucket of lava and the bucket of water, and you can just sort of create your own water sources. Definitely 100% love to see that in there. Like, it would just add to the creativity. Your builds and everything's like that would be absolutely amazing. Like, you could do some pretty incredible stuff with your builds. And it's really just going to add a completely different vibe to, you know, if I could get a waterfall running off the edge of my base, you know, it's up to the devs, but you're not going to have the water sort of make it all the way down to the bottom, and maybe it dissipates once it hits the ground after a certain distance or something like that. So there'd be a little bit of implementation and a little bit of thought process for the devs to go through to actually sort of implement it into the game. but I don't think there would be a player in the game that would be adverse to that as an addition. Now, that in fact brings me on to my last talking point for the video, which is companions. So this goes back to, I'm playing a solo game, so it's coming from that point of view where I've got no other input from anyone else. So it's just me playing the game. What's up here? Yeah, so it's just me playing the game at the moment, and it feels a little bit dead. So adding a companion to the game, and I think companions have been great in any game, like implemented as an addition into any game. Like obviously anyone who's played this has more than likely, I don't think I've got that, has more than likely played Skyrim, and getting you different types of companions is a really big, you know, sort of everyone loves it. Like potentially you could have animals as companions, or people, basically just the addition of companions in general. And they could have certain abilities, so you know, you might have basically your support roles or your attack roles. You might just limit it to one, or you might be able to have a couple. That depends on the implementation. But having support roles that might be able to heal or give you buffs, or just changed my axe because it's much quicker. Yeah, so healing, like support roles, healing, something that gives you some form of buff, maybe a companion that you create a relationship with that gives you comfort. I think, you know, I think relationships are comforting, right? It's one of the things about relationships. So as you build your relationship with the character, they might give you some form of comfort that would sort of keep you going through the game. Because comfort can be one of the sort of, you know, you die and you lose your rested buff and you have to go back and get your rested buff and blah, blah, blah. The offensive style as well. So something to do DPS. Maybe you could have a ranged companion that does a little bit of range damage for you, so that could come into work with the new enemy types that you need sort of a ranged attack for, but you've got a melee build, so you've got something there that will actually do some form of range damage for you and keep those enemies at bay that need to have a ranged attack. Definitely come down to the implementation, how the devs were to go about it. I guess none of these things are, like, I guess maybe a couple of these ideas are a little bit basic and definitely could be added in relatively easy, but some of them would definitely have to have some thought put into them. Also the monster types. So your different types of monsters in the game, you could potentially get them as companions as well. I don't see why not. The more variety in things like that, the better. I think the more options. I think more variety in general is definitely a good thing. So I'm probably going to call it there for the video. I've had a little bit of a rant. If anyone would like to leave any comments on the video, let me know what you think of my ideas, anything that you'd like to see brought into the game in the future. And yeah, so anything that I've sort of missed on my list. And yeah, please drop a like on the video, and if you would like to subscribe for some more rants and more Enshrouded content. I basically do sort of RPG survival games mainly, but I do other game content as well, and in the future we'll be sort of branching out in different directions. So yeah, if you'd like to see more videos, please drop a like and a sub, and I'll see you all very soon in the next one.